Hello, my name is Sarah Payne and welcome to my sewing room. I've been doing a couple of little videos about this quilt that I've been working on, this one here. This is a tumbling blocks quilt using Christmas fabrics, and this is going to be the final video in the series because now I'm binding it. So you can use these videos whatever quilt you're doing. I'm just going to show you a technique for binding. Now, because I do a lot of quilts for TV and I have to do them very quickly, I actually machine bind the whole thing. So that's what I'm going to show you to do today, but I will stop and show you where you can do it by hand, so you know you can do it the proper way. But for now, just a quick recap. This is a tumbling block which is basically made with three 60-degree diamonds put together to make three sides of a cube, so that you get that effect. You work with light, medium and dark, or in this case 3 different colors to repeat that pattern. Now, to cut my templates, I have used the 60-degree diamond template from Simplicity, the easy rule, and I actually just cut around the outside, which is a 4.5 inch wide strip. So I cut my fabric 4.5 inch wide strips, cut these and then stitch them together. I have done a YouTube video on the Y-shaped seams, how to do them the easy way. I'll put a link in the bottom so that you can find that video as well. The fabrics I've used are the Craft Cotton Company Christmas fabrics here. I've got the white metallic snowflake. I've got, so if you just see there with those lovely little white snowflakes, we've got the red metallic snowflake, and then we've got the green. I've also used the green and some bits of the red and white for the backing, and I'm going to use the green to bind it. Now, to make my binding, I've cut my strips. I have placed them right sides together. I've placed them right sides together, stitched at 45 degrees, cut that off and then press it flat. So I've got enough to go all the way around. I like to be a little bit generous so I don't run out. Then I've pressed it, so the 2.5 inch wide strips have been pressed in half, so now they're 1.25 inch wide. I tend to keep it all on the floor just so that it's sort of sitting beside me and it doesn't get tangled up. Now, the other thing that I like to use when I'm binding, especially when I bind the back on, are wonder clips. Now, these are wonder clips, fantastic little toys. They are basically little clips. They don't distort the fabric and they're easy to slide, which you can't do with pins. So I've got my little pouch of my wonder clips. Now, wonder clips aren't cheap, which is why I keep them in a little pouch so that I don't lose them, but they are worth their weight in gold. So let's get ready to sew. Now, what I've done is, for my binding, I always put on my walking foot. I just find that it keeps all of the layers of fabric together and nothing slips. If you've got particularly sort of fabric that tends to move, you can do a basting stitch all the way around, which means you extend your straight stitch as long as it will go. So on my machine, this is the Brother FS130QC, it will go up to 5, which is 5 mil, I believe, but it's a longer stitch, and I will stitch very close, about 1/8 of an inch to the edge to hold everything down. Once I've finished, then it should be in the seam allowance, so it shouldn't be visible, but if it is, because I've done a longer stitch, it's very easy to unpick. Right, so now starting off with my strip, I fold over that tip at a 45-degree angle. I've just given it a quick press. That is so when I get the other end can tuck inside and I've got nice neat edges and nothing raw. I'm also going to start at the bottom of the quilt. Now, in this case, the quilt has no top and bottom, but I like to start at sort of the bottom off center, because you will end up with a slight bulge, and I think the eye is drawn to the top. So having it at the bottom is the last place you look. Next, when I start my stitching, I'm going to start about 1 inch from the end of that fold, and that is so that I can easily tuck the other end right inside. Now let's get it into my machine. And if you want to, you can, if it's like mine and not behaving, we could stick a pin in here just to hold it. I'm not using a wonder clip there because it would be too big and it would catch under my foot. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to move my foot, my needle rather, to, oh, grab the bobbin thread. I'm just putting a new bobbin in, so the bobbin thread is inside at the moment. But I'm going to move my needle to about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and then I'm going to pull my bobbin thread up to the top so it's out the way. Just to do that, needle down, needle up, pull on that top thread, and there's my bobbin thread in there. And now I can tuck it out of the way and it's not going to get tangled. So we start stitching. Now again, as I've mentioned before, the walking foot is a walking foot, not a running foot. So keep it nice and steady. I'm actually doing quite a small 1/4 of an inch. You know, I don't want to be too generous because I've got to fold it round the back. But I do want to make sure that I catch all my fabric in place. So now I'm actually going to stop 1/4 of an inch for the end or the edge of my quilt. There we go, and then whiz off at 45 degrees. Okay, now we will fold the strip up so it's in line, and then fold it down, and then you'll end up with that little flap. So see, you've got that little flap because I went up and then back down again following the line. This flap is what will give you your mitered edge, your mitered corner. So now I'm going to start from that point again. I start 1/4 of an inch from the edge, but I start when I come down, I'm going straight from the beginning. It's only at the end that I stop 1/4 of an inch before the end. Now when I'm coming along here, sometimes, because there's a bit of bulk here, sometimes it catches on the bottom of my walking foot. So if it does that, just lift up your foot and then drop it down again. It's just because those feed dogs at the back can catch the bulk. So now we'll just continue all the way around. So we stop at each corner, do that mitering, and at the 45 degrees. It's going to take me a few minutes to get all the way round, so I'll carry on, and then you can come back here in a couple of seconds, and by the magic of YouTube, we will be right at the far end again. Hi, welcome back. So I've stitched all the way round now, and as I came to the very end, I've tucked in that piece, the end piece, into that first folded piece. Okay, that then tucks inside. I also, as I tuck it in, I also slide this one away a little bit, like that. So you can see that it's actually poking out over here. That means I've got slightly less bulk inside just there. And I'm just going to trim that little extra bit off just to get it out the way. And now I'm ready. Now this is normally what you do if you do it the proper way, is you then flip over like this and you will slip stitch it by hand onto the back, which I do a lot, especially in the winter, because it's nice to sit there with a big quilt on your lap hand stitching it. But when I've got shows and deadlines, I actually use a cheaty method, which is when you sew it, you would actually line it up with those stitches from the front so that you hide your back stitches. But what I do with this is I fold them over a little bit more so it's overlapping, so my binding on the front is narrower, but then I'm going to stitch from the top in that seam there. I've changed my thread to a red thread because I don't want you to see it, but I'm actually going to stitch. Now this is why you want the wonder clips, because what happens is this can slip up and away. So I always clip. You don't need many of them because we only need to clip a little bit in front of where we're actually going to be stitching. And then you'll need a pin for the corner. So I would put clips like that, so you can see every sort of 2 inches. Now I'm going to start just beyond where my end tucked in. The reason for that is if anything slips, by the time I come round here, this can just be tucked in a little bit further. If I've started before it, I've got nowhere for any extra bulk to go. So let's get to the machine. Now this does take a bit of concentration, and I'm going to move my needle into the middle so that I can see it on my walking foot. Again, I'm still using the walking foot, and I want to tuck those threads out of my way and just get everything lined up. So I want to make sure that my needle is going to go down in between the backing, in between the binding and my quilt, in that seam. And then I'm just going to reduce the size of my stitch a little bit, so I can do a couple of little tiny stitches and then go backwards, and then everything is nice and secure. Then I'm going to go back to my standard 2.5 on this machine and slowly stitch in that ditch. Now as I come up to a clip, I kind of slide it forwards a little bit, and then I move it to the next bit along. Slide it so that I'm never really more than 2 inches away from a clip. Now I'm coming up towards the corner. So with a standard corner, if you were doing this by hand, you would tuck that like this and then tuck underneath. So you've got a mitre on the front and on the back, and then you would slip stitch all the way around. Well, we're obviously not slip stitching, so what I'm doing is I am tucking mine like I would if it was slip stitch, and I'm sticking a pin through it to hold it in place. And then I'm going to stick another one of my wonder clips just on here to hold it. So when we get up to this corner, I need to make sure that everything stays tucked underneath, because if anything rides up, you will not be attached on the back. This is also, it's great for quickness, but also if you're making a quilt that you know is going to get a lot of use, as in a baby or a child. I'm not convinced that hand stitching is really as secure as I'd like it to be. So actually machine stitching it, it doesn't look quite so pretty on the back, but it is very functional. So I'm going to come up to that corner, turn it. I'm leaving my pin in there for now. Just move that out of the way. I'm moving my pin in there for now, and I'm just going to stitch up to the pin, take the pin out, and then continue round. So if I just show you, that's what it looks like from the front. I can't take it out of the machine, but that's what it looks like on the back. And you can see my stitch line. I've actually done it in white on this, but in hindsight probably green would be better. If I was giving this away, green would be better. But you see I've got a little overlap there, but that doesn't matter. It's all nice and secure, and it means that I can do it in a fraction of the time, so when I'm in a rush, but it also means that it's got that extra security that you get from machine stitching. So that's a cheaty way of binding your quilt. You do it the same way standard, so you fold your binding strips in half with the wrong sides together, press them, stitch them to the front of your quilt, and then fold them over and back. The only difference is traditionally you would stitch that and have a slightly wider binding look on the front. With this method I fold it a little bit tighter, and then that means that I've got a little bit of overlap on the back, so that I catch all of my ends. You just have to keep an eye and keep it clipped. And again, this is a walking foot, not a running foot, so we take it nice and slowly. And my quilt will now be finished in about 10 minutes instead of about 2 hours. So I hope that helps. I hope you give that a try. Either method, finishing by hand or by machine, is completely up to you. There's no quilt police in my sewing room. But I hope that it helped you out, and I would love to see any of your projects. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Sarah Payne Quilter on Facebook. I'm also, you can search for me and you'll find me. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. So please do share your work and your ideas, and I hope to see you again here soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.